Shaniequa Washington is a content creator, the founder and CEO of her own leadership development company. And oh, by the way, she's the owner of her own clothing and apparel brand. I talk one-on-one with Shaniequa for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Shaniequa Washington, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a content creator, the founder and chief executive officer of Zuriel Leadership Development LLC. And of course, you are the owner of Zuriel Kingdom Collections, as we all know, here in the Low Country. So I should say that that particular company is a custom clothing and apparel brand based here in Charleston. So tell me, what's new, what's now with you?
What's new? What's now? What's new is the continuing to build the bridge of community, and my fashion apparel has opened up many lucrative conversations within our communities on the subject of DEI. People wanting to understand how can they do their part as business owners and leaders to be able to create meaningful impact within their businesses as well as within the community by serving people. So I just took on a new adventure with one of the number one marketing teams here in Charleston, Trio Solutions,
right.
And I will be participating with them and helping them with their DEI efforts as they have identified the work that I have already done in Charleston through my apparel brand.
What are those DEI efforts right now in Charleston as you see it from your perspective?
I believe it starts with conversation. As we all know, our world is in a very awkward position. People are scared of having conversations, not necessarily because they don't need to be had, but not knowing two things. What will be the outcome at the end of the conversation, and how do we even start the conversation? So people recognize that there is a work that needs to be done. There are things that have to change in order for us to evolve into the places where we need to be. But how to start the conversations and what the outcome of the conversations will be, I think that is the part where there's a mystery.
What are the other mysteries when it comes to those conversations about DEI?
Inclusion. Everybody has their take on inclusion and belonging. And one of the things that my pieces of apparel helps to leverage the conversation is we can't walk into a JCPenney and find it. We can't walk into a Belks. We can't walk into a Nordstrom. We can't walk into a Target and find these particular items of culture. And why is that? Why is it that there are certain things that is excluded from our everyday processes in our everyday lives, when it should be very inclusive as it relates to tradition, culture, understanding one's identity, background, native belonging? Why is it that there are certain things that don't belong, but then there's other things that we feel do belong? So how do we start those conversations without being offensive, knowing that I have to ask the right questions for me to gain understanding, but how do I pose the question without it being a trigger? Or without it being something that leaves a nasty taste in someone's mouth?
What should be that approach, Ms. Shaniequa?
I think the approach should be two-part. A1, take the time to understand yourself. I think that relationships are built with knowing people. Think about our personal relationships with our parents, with our grandparents, with those that we love. Those came over the course of time, and it was getting to know how each and every one of us work, how we understand, how we process, how we receive, how we respond. And I think starting with that first, build a relationship. And we forget that relationships, they are the foundation to many things. And people are just wanting to build business without relationship. You can never build a business without a human approach.
As a result of that, with people just going straight to business without building those relationships, what have been the consequences that you've seen so far?
I think that businesses have folded because of mixed messaging, where you have put out a message that you necessarily may not have meant, but it is certainly how it is perceived. And it also falls into the category of what's already been done consistently over and over again with something just like, I apologize, I didn't know. Where do we take the time to do the research to know? And that starts with relationships. If I have you to bring your child to me, if you have children and they're having a sleepover, as a parent, I would want to build a relationship with the other parent to say, what are their allergies? What are the things that are no boundaries?
Correct.
What are the things that we need to do to ensure that they feel comfortable? You build that relationship to find out what is the need of that individual. I think we build businesses based off of simply book knowledge without human connection that gives us an understanding of what the need is. And that's because we probably never asked.
What are those human connections that can actually help with the book knowledge?
The human connections is understanding culture. Understanding why do we do certain things. Some things are not oblivious. And let me give it a prime example of that. I taught a head wrapping class. And after I taught the head wrapping class, people had a different meaning and understanding, and people from all cultures purchased the head wrap because they didn't know that the head wrap was significant from the Tignet law in the 1700s in Louisiana, where we were still coming out of this course of slavery. And it was said that we had to put these rags on our head to classify us as still being slaves because our beauty was a threat to the community. And therefore, we would not be seen as first-class citizens. So this was a way to say that we were not citizens and that we were still enslaved women. But what did we do with that? We took those rags that they gave us to put on our head and we adorned them in such a beautiful way that they are now called head wraps. So with that being said, I think understanding the meaning behind the culture by having earnest conversations with people breaks the barrier where book knowledge just won't give us.
And I hate to go on a different path here, Ms. Shaniequa, but when it comes to the Black culture, what are those other threats that people perceive when it comes to our culture?
A lot of it is language. They perceive us to be angry and mad when we're not angry and mad. We just want to be heard with validity. I think sometimes that our concerns are not perceived to be valid. So when we present them, we're presented as a difficult people. And we are not difficult. We just want to be able to have the same privilege as everybody else. That when I walk into a room, I'm taken seriously. That when I present an idea, that it's respected. That when I am speaking, I'm talking about how I feel, that I'm not in emotional turmoil. That I am really a human person and that my feelings, my explanation of certain things and even understanding, these things are valid. And just as much as we have to be able to accept it on the other side, it should be cross-pollinated where we understand it on both sides.
What ideas from our culture are slowly being respected by the society today?
I think one of the things that is slowly being accepted is our impact, especially in the arts arena. We have found that if our football players come off the field, if our artists stop creating art, if the genres of music end, there will be a portion of this world that will just be empty. Because we have created sound, visual, and opportunity for us to thrive in the sports arena in ways that many cultures still have not grasped.
Wow. What is there more to grasp when it comes to that?
What it is more to grasp when it comes to that is even looking at the opportunities that are afforded to, let's say, our young men in the sports arena and the value that they bring to the field and the camaraderie that they bring to brotherhood. There are a lot of young players that are out there, whether it be basketball, football, soccer, baseball, whatever you name the sport. When you really look into the depth of it, there is a brotherhood that is created where there is brotherhood beyond blood. And sometimes those things impact in the business world because when you need a coming together, it's us that brings the coming together. Even look at the political arena as it sits right now. We are depending on the Black people to make sure that this vote counts. We are able to rally the forces. We are able to bring people together. We understand through the culture of food how to break bread and sit with one another and have open conversation. We work around all of the things that people are not willing to work through. We are willing to do the work, but we are asking to be respected for the work.
And Miss Shaniequa, what is that? This probably is a redundant question, but what is that brotherhood that's really missing right now when it comes to DEI and society?
Because we're still looked at from the days where we were told what to do, and we were told how to do it, and we were told when to do it. In this day, we are doing things in liberty, but we still can't find justice for all. And that's what our Constitution states, with liberty and justice for all. And we are doing things in a liberated way. We are doing things in an amplified sound. We are doing things in a collective way. But the justice for it, we still have not yet, as a community and a society, wrapped our mind around the justice behind the liberated work that we are doing.
So what should that conversation be?
What do I need to do so that I am not just tolerated, but that I actually have a seat of belonging? And there's a difference between being tolerated and belonging. Belonging means that I don't have to change my hair. I don't have to change my tone. I don't even have to change the attributes in how I wish to showcase the work of my art, because it belongs here too. Because if you exclude it, it is very evident that there's something missing.
And how are you actually making sure that your art is not being excluded and that you're actually being heard?
I'm showing up in spaces that are quite uncomfortable, being the only. And we have to be okay with being the only, because if we're never the only, then we won't have an amplification of that only. So being okay with being in spaces and places that you may be a little bit uncomfortable in, being able to hear both sides of the coin. I think sometimes we only want our point to be viewed or understood or accepted. But even understanding the other portion, that many of these things that are going on in our world is learned behavior. So there are some things that were taught that have to be unlearned so you can learn how to do something new. And being okay with accepting that side of what they did not know. Because they only know what they know, like we only know what we know. And until we know something different, we got to be okay with that, not on one side, but on both sides.
Wow, powerful, powerful, powerful. Well, Shaniequa Washington, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me, Quintin. It was an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, thank you so much.